Just 3 years ago, Jalen Green was looking like one of the most promising young shooting guard prospects among the entire NBA, ending his sophomore season with averages of 22 points per game and respectable numbers across the board. Now, in 2024, the Houston Rockets are looking like the best they ever have since losing James Harden back in 2021, with the emergence of Tari Eason and Amen Thompson locking down defensively, while Alperen Sengun and Fred VanVleet are initiating the offense. But what about Jalen, the second overall pick who was supposed to be a fiery spark plug scoring guard that would fill the hole on offense left by Harden? Well, in 2024, not only is Jalen scoring the ball at the lowest rate of his career, he is shooting the ball at the worst efficiency across the board of his entire career so far. Even with this, the Rockets have continued to excel, which begs the question, what can the Houston Rockets do with Jalen Green at this point? Jalen Green's struggles can be traced all the way back to his rookie season trajectory. Entering the NBA after one season with the G League Ignite, he joined a miserable roster that was led by Kevin Porter Jr. at the time, who had just been cut from the Cavaliers for off-the-court issues. And through his first 40 games, he struggled to put it nicely, averaging just 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists on a very bad 51% from the true shooting. However, after the shaky start, coming into the last stretch of games after the All-Star break, Jalen seemingly broke out, boosting his numbers to 21 points a game, 4 rebounds and 3 assists on a much better 58% true shooting in the last 23 games of that season. Looking even further into this, his extremely poor shooting in the very first month of his career skyrocketed to just above 60% in the last month of the season. And after what was seen as pretty linear improvement through his rookie season, the expectations were set very high in heading into his sophomore year, with Houston adding a 3-and-D wing in Jabari Smith Jr. with the 3rd overall pick in the offseason, presumably for Jalen Green to cook as the leader of the Rockets offense. With an increase in usage bringing improvements across the board on the stat sheet for Jalen in year 2. And I would comfortably say that this season was the peak of Jalen Green's hype and trade value for the Houston Rockets. Having a 20-year-old average 22 points a game on serviceable shooting numbers without much of a frame built at all at this point, it seemed extremely optimistic for the future. With this in mind, it was all the more disappointing when the Houston Rockets finally started to become a competitive basketball team with the additions of Ime Udoka, Dillon Brooks, Fred VanVleet, and the emergences of young guys like Sengun, Tari Eason, and Amen Thompson, that Jalen Green actually saw a decline in nearly every metric without a significant drop-off in usage in this offense. The current decline over the past season and a half can be heavily foreshadowed by issues Jalen had over his entire NBA career, even in that sophomore season, which is looked at as his best. The cycle of Jalen Green is as follows. To start the season, Jalen Green shoots terribly and looks like a lost cause, which makes Rockets fans split across the community on whether they should be negative or give him some more time. After struggling for about half the season, near the end of the season when the playoffs are out of reach or not possible, Jalen decides to play like prime Kobe Bryant and has the best stats of his career, specifically in those last 2 months of the season. In fact, if we take a look at the numbers over his 4-year career, month by month, the difference between his first 2 months compared to his last 2 is literally better every single year of his career so far. It's actually been impressive how consistently inconsistent Jalen Green has become through his career, but it's clearly time the Rockets need to make a decision about his role ahead of the now bright immediate future. The main issue for Jalen has always been his inability to drive downhill and utilize his ridiculous athleticism, a tool that has constantly been overshadowed by his skinny frame. Green has weighed in under 190 pounds over all 4 years of his career so far, and when compared to other young star guards, this is clearly a huge limitation in his game. Guys like Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, players that Jalen's ceiling was routinely getting compared to back when he was drafted, have the strength to drive and draw contact, getting to the line and using this rim pressure to actually open up space for their jump shots. When it comes to Jalen Green though, I would actually say his fast twitch athleticism is better than both Ant and SGA, but with next to no muscle, when it comes to attacking downhill and at the rim, it often results in Jalen not even looking to attack the defense, settling for jumper after jumper, and becoming extremely predictable for other teams' defenses when guarding him. This predictability can be a huge factor in why Jalen's been so inefficient over his career, especially this season in particular, where teams have over 150 career games of film on how the same player settling and failing to put any pressure on the defenders plays basketball. And Ime Udoka is a very good head coach, mainly more of a defensive minded guy, but it doesn't take a genius to see why Jalen has been struggling so badly. Udoka even came out and said after a 41-point game from Jalen against the flopping 76ers that their game plan was to get him downhill more, put him in more situations where he was, quote, less reliant on jump shots. Even the head coach knows Green's issue, and yet after his hot start to this season, he's been regressing to the worst numbers of his entire career. And his impact numbers are even uglier, showing that Jalen Green on the court is actively making the Houston Rockets a worse team both on offense and defense. With a very lucrative 3-year deal with a team option at the end of it, Houston made this contract in the offseason for Jalen entirely off the situation where he does not improve in 2024. And so far that has been the case, which strongly implies to me that the second-seeded Rockets in a tough Western Conference will more than likely be trying their best to ship off a player who has been actively making the team worse. At just 22 years old, there's definitely still some value in the shooting guard with his athletic tools and somewhat impressive jumper at times, and I would not be surprised if a rebuilding team such as the Brooklyn Nets, or even now the Miami Heat with all the crazy Jimmy Butler drama, to take a shot on Jalen Green. That being said, if the Houston Rockets do decide to stick with Jalen Green, it's time that we as fans stop dividing and start holding this guy accountable for his consistent disappointing regression over the past 4 years in his NBA career so far.